Hello, and welcome to the final project for our metabolism unit. In order to get started on it, we'll actually have to leave the metabolism unit and move over to the metabolism internship unit. To do this, you simply get to this window, which you can get by clicking this little metabolism icon in the top left-hand corner of the screen, and clicking back to Amplify Science for 6th grade. Among all the units we've done already, which is thermal energy and metabolism, we're now going to move to the internship. Internships are special projects at Amplify that give you the chance to work at real problems, kind of like the way you would with a job, to engineer or design a product or some kind of solution for a problem in a real-world scenario. So here with Futura Engineering, this fictional company, we're going to begin with the first lesson, Introduction to the Engineering Internship. A lot of the work you're going to be doing with this project is online, and for that reason, I'm going to mostly instruct you on how to work on this through videos, so that way you can watch them on your own, rewatch them when you need them, and pause and play them as much as you have to. Because everyone will move at different paces, it'll be difficult to instruct the whole class. When we begin lessons in this unit, I'll do a small 5 to 10 minute lecture, that is a lesson where I'll teach you a little bit about what we're doing, and then I'll direct you right to the videos and expect you to be able to do the rest on your own. This is because in middle school, the major goal of science is to teach you the practice of being an independent learner. This is a term you may not be super familiar with, but basically what it means is that now that you're in middle school, we're not going to teach you everything you need to know. In other words, when we learn about metabolism, I'm only going to teach you about 75 to 80% of what you're supposed to know, and the other 20% you are expected to learn on your own or teach yourself. This is why so many of our lessons have included articles to read or models and hand-on simulations to use. The goal and the expectation is that you will learn for yourself by experimenting with these things and using them to see for yourself what happens. It's a big reason why I don't expect all of you to immediately raise your hand and ask me what the answer is. You're expected to figure it out on your own, using what you can learn on your own. Because research and teaching yourself is a big part of being a student, especially as you go on through your years here at Lionel Wilson Prep and when you get to high school, and it's an enormous deal in college. The majority of students in college don't really learn from their professors. The professors are there to help clarify things, offer assignments, or essentially facilitate the class. The goal of the learning is left in the hands of you, the students. But with that said, let's go ahead and introduce this project so we know what we're up against. In this project, you're going to join this fictitious company called Futura. And Futura is looking to design a nutrition bar to help the metabolism of two groups of individuals. The first is rescue workers, who go to places where large-scale disasters like hurricanes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, earthquakes, and other issues have occurred, and go in and rescue people. When they're working like that, they don't have a lot of time to sit down and make themselves a full meal. So they need a quick, easy snack that they can eat right away, over and over again, to replenish their energy. We've already learned about how energy works in the metabolism simulations and the metabolism unit, so you should have a good bit of information on how to design it. But to begin it, we're going to go ahead and start learning about what it means to be an engineer. To do that, I'm going to show it to you through this slideshow so you know exactly what's expected of you, and I want to be as clear as possible when we're learning this. In the first lesson, you're going to be learning about how to think about engineering. We're going to watch a video about what the project entails in great detail. We're going to introduce the phases of a project, that's the steps we take, and the roles we have in this project so that you know exactly what's expected of you. And then you're going to be introduced into the Futura Workspace and Dossier. These are two specific documents and online platforms. In other words, it's part of Amplify, but it's a different part of Amplify that you'll use for the next 2 weeks to learn. And then you'll learn what it means to write a project summary, which is how we'll begin to show that you've understood everything you've been taught today and that you'll know what to look for in the future. So firstly, let's talk about engineers. Engineers essentially solve problems. The main job of an engineer is to take a problem and then solve it. I know that sounds exceedingly simple, but that's literally what it's about. If you're an engineer, you're given an issue like, we need to make a bridge to get across this gap, or we need a machine that can get to Mars that can tell us more about it, or we need to make the best baby formula so that babies get the energy they need and they can get it quickly. These are problems that we solve. Most often it's done by building something, again, like a bridge, a Mars rover, baby formula, a car, a new kind of electric gizmo, like how to make a smaller battery so your phone can fit in your pocket, things like that. Once they figure out these solutions, they figure out ways to do it in the best way possible and move on. So when we think about engineering, I want you to think about it as problem solving or solving problems. So we're going to go ahead and watch this video in class, and I'll give you a link to it in class so that you can watch it for yourself, where we're going to learn about what it means to be an intern at Futura and what it means to use your skills as an intern to develop this nutrition bar. Go ahead and pause the video now to go watch the video. You can find it by going over to Lessons, clicking on the lesson brief, and then clicking the See More. Down below in the digital resources, you'll see it right here, the video. Welcome to Futura. Alright, once you've watched that video, you can come back to this video, and you can go back to watching what I have to show, so that you can learn what you need to do for today's lesson. Alright, welcome back to the video. Here's what you need to do. So now that you've watched this video, you have a better idea about what's expected of you and what you're looking for when you're designing these nutrition bars. In particular, you know that you have to do a little bit of research. In other words, you have to study the problem. You have to do some design work. You have to build it a little bit yourself. And then you have to propose your designs, your solutions to a coordinator. In this case, that's me, to accept your proposal. And that's how I'll do your grades too. So to understand the roles here, because that's what we're looking at, project phases and roles, Amina Reed is the project director. This is a fictitious employee of this company. Her job is to give these instructions and set deadlines and determines if your progress is ready. You are the interns. In other words, your job is to be an employee of this company and come up with a solution. And my job is the internship coordinator. I go between the instructions you give and the work you have to better help you clarify and facilitate. My goal is not to teach you how to do this. I will show you how to use it if you're unfamiliar with it, and I will provide these videos to give you an overview if you don't understand it. But your goal is to learn for yourselves how to do that. That's why I put such a big emphasis on being an independent learner. It's something that's going to come up a lot in this unit. It'll be your first real chance to try it out, almost 90% on your own. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to understanding what you're supposed to do. Usually the hardest part of being an independent learner is taking the first step. In other words, what am I supposed to do first? Because if you don't know what to do, it can be very frustrating to look at something and have no clue how to start. And when we get frustrated, we tend to give up. And if we give up, we're not really doing anything productive and getting the grades we want in this class. So let's begin with how we find out what to do. Every day, you'll have this Metabolism Engineering Internship Overview. This is in the Futura dossier. The workspace and dossier, I should say. The workspace has two parts. The first is an inbox, just like in an email account, where you'll be sent letters and overviews of what you're doing for the day. The second is details about each item. In particular, this is a welcome letter from Amina Reed. Remember, she's the project coordinator. She welcomes you to Futura Engineering and welcomes you to investigate the first two pieces of information you get. The Futura Engineering dossier, which is a long list of files. In particular, it's about 5 or 6 in total that you can read through. Today, you only need to read through the first file. I'll show it to you in a bit. And then you use that to form your project summary, to summarize essentially what the project's about. So let's go ahead and take a look at those things. So once you do those two things, you can write a project summary. The project summary is listed here in the item list. You'll notice that the items are listed one after the other, just like they would be if they were in an email inbox. We've already read the welcome letter, and now we're reading the project summary. A project summary asks a couple of quick questions. These are checkpoints to make sure that you're going through the reading actively, because if you just passively read it, you won't get all the information you get. And they're also information for you to write down so that you can refer to it later if you get confused or if you forget. It's very easy in a few days when you're working really hard on something to lose focus and think, what was I doing again? This way you can go back and check and see exactly what you're working on. Alright, enough of this. Let's go over and take a look at this overview in person. So when you go to your lessons and you come to this section, you can go to the Futura workspace by clicking on the warm-up and then clicking on the Open the Futura workspace. Once you open it, it should log you right in, and if it doesn't, it will give you a menu. Mine is the teacher menu, which lets me select the different classes. In this case, it's 6C, 6B, and 6A. You should be loaded right into your account, and your account will look something a little more along the lines of this. Now you'll notice I have some different line items on the left here. That's because, again, I'm the teacher, so I check in your information and what you're up to. But you should have something that looks like this: Safety Guidelines, Project Summary, and Message 1. The safety guidelines are there to let you know how to work with experiments. I'm only going to show one brief demo throughout this entire lesson, so the safety guidelines aren't particularly important. But the important part for you is reading the message and opening this dossier. The dossier looks like this once you've opened it, and as you can see, it has a title for each slide, and there's one, here's the second one, here's the third one, the fourth one, and finally the fifth one, which is a glossary of terms for you to look through. The reason I showed you all 5 of those is so that you can flip through them yourself to make sure that your computer has all of them. Sometimes pieces of it will get locked out of accounts, and I want to make sure you have all the information before we continue. Alright, now that you've looked at it, you're going to go ahead and look through what you're expected to do. You're expected to write up this project summary as your first task. To do this, you have to ask, what is the goal of the International Disaster Aid Project? What are the three main design criteria? In other words, the criteria are things that we need to see. They're checklist items. And then what is another design criteria? What is a third design criteria? So what are the three design criteria? What's the goal for the National Disaster Aid? And then describe the project in your own words. You should be very careful when doing this because you'll use this for the final turn-in of the project. You can find all that information here in the request for proposals. This first part is called a request for proposal, specifically because most projects begin by asking for a proposal. If you go to a company and say, I can solve all your problems, they'll go, great, send us a proposal. That's what you're going to do. You're going to do research, read about it, and begin doing the work of sending in a proposal. Now that you've watched this first video, you have a good idea of how to get started. So go ahead and start with the project summary, and then come back for the second video so you know what you're expected to do on the next part.